You're on board?
Yeah. Well, I think what happened, I think my wife got it when we were
Recording thing going. How come they hide that? Oh, record.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everybody to the October edition of the Westside Computer Club. I'd like to open up the meeting tonight, and we're going to have our open forum. Then we'll not have a break. And we'll go into our presentation by Bob Primak, who's going to be doing his evaluation of Windows 11. Or he could tell us what it's going to be about. What's it going to be, Bob?
Well, it's a new computer and an upgrade involving Windows 11.
Okay, there you go. All right. So we have our open forum, and I'd like to know who'd like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening. I do. Oh, him. Everyone ask that guy a question. He's got a question. All right. So I have my Vizio Stick PC, which is a low power processor computer that only job is to run as a photo screensaver. And for many years, I was running a program called Random Photo Screensaver. Worked very well on it. Basically, I boot up the machine, it goes right into the program and starts running as a screensaver to display all the photos as well as videos that are on my server. And I particularly use this one because it not only does photos, but it does the videos and shows clips off the videos that are included in that folder. This shared folder that I have access to. Well, a few weeks ago, the system did a security update, and I believe when it was doing the shutdown process, it didn't shut down correctly, and I probably had a corrupted file or two that somehow got their way into there. Well, this program had stopped working altogether, and I was never able to get it to work again, and I don't know what the problem was. Today, the other thing that I noticed is that I tried to use the Windows screensaver, photo screensaver that's built into it, and that started to fail on me, meaning it just wouldn't run. And I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't run. So I did a little digging online and found that one of the things that was suggested, which is a real basic thing, do a system file checker, scan now, and that did solve a lot of the problems that that program was having. By doing the reboot, by running the process, it did acknowledge that it found some bad files or some corrupted files and it needed to repair them, which it did. And then I did a reboot, and Windows Screensaver did work. But the one thing I did notice about the Windows Screensaver is that when you go to adjust the speed, which is the only thing, there's only two things you can adjust on that program. One is where it's going to look for the photos, and two, the speed in which it operates, slow, medium, and fast. If I choose anything other than medium, the program won't run. So this one, I don't know what the thing is with that. I wanted to slow it down so it made the pictures display a lot longer. It just will not run. You try to invoke it and it just won't run at all. So it can only run in medium mode. So that's one thing related to that. This other program, that is a freeware. It's a donationware program that's out there. And I believe it's still being supported. It's still being updated, though it has not been updated in a while, probably in a couple of years. That one I did not find a fix for. I never could get it to run. In addition, when I tried to invoke the configuration program for that, it also fails. So I don't know what's going on with that, and why that would be. I've tried running it in administrative mode. I've tried doing Windows compatibility mode, Nothing seems to work. I've used Windows Troubleshooter, again, same problem. Nothing seems to solve the problem or fix it. So I throw it out to the group. Any ideas on how I could try to track down what is making this program fail or not run? Yes, Bill.
Well, as smart as you are, you probably have already done this. Deleted the program and looked for it online again to reinstall.
Yes.
I'm
I did use Revo uninstaller,
Okay.
uninstalled the program, uninstalled all the stuff that comes along with it. All the registry stuff has been eliminated. And then I went and did a reboot and a reinstall, and I've tried there's 2 different versions of that are out there. The 4.5 that you and I have been running, as well as the 4.5.11, which is supposedly their latest one, is supposed to be the most compatible. That one, you and I both know, has not ran at all on Windows 10, even though it's supposed to. I checked to make sure my net framework has updated, and I went to Windows and downloaded or attempted to download a newer version of net framework to see if that was an issue. Windows has reported back to me that I have the most current version, and there's nothing I need to do. I think that's 4.8. I think it's net framework. I believe that's off my head. So I'm back to Bob, who's got his fingers up and telling me.
Okay. I ran into a similar problem with the old Gadgets framework. It actually needed an older version of .NET than the current version. And the older version hasn't been really deprecated, but it might have disappeared. So see if you can find out whether it needs an older version.
It says on their website that it should work with Net Framework 4.7 and up.
Okay.
So it means it doesn't want an older version of Net Framework.
Okay.
And Net Framework says it's backward compatible, and I don't think you can't roll Net Framework back. You can't.
No, but you can install an older version.
Yes, and I didn't. I did not try that function to see, but that's also so you're suggesting look for an older version of
Maybe.
Net Framework.
Only if the site says it depends upon and it's listing a version that's older
Okay.
than what you have. And otherwise, from time to time, Windows Update will change the behavior of things like the desktop, the slideshow, and stuff like that. And if the code is gone, it's gone.
Yes. The code being the code in Microsoft.
In Windows.
Yeah.
It can happen.
It can happen.
I can discuss a few things about the Windows 11 upgrade about that too.
Okay, all right. Well,
In other words, that can happen in an upgrade or just any kind of update.
Okay.
I don't think you have any problems with Windows Defender security or with protected folders or with protected memory, not with Windows 10. So those can be eliminated as possibilities. And I presume when you ran SFC scan now, you also ran the DISM restore health?
Yes, I did. I ran, there's 3, let me tell you what I did run also in addition to that.
There's 3 sets of commands.
Yes, yes, and since you brought that up, I feel compelled to discuss which ones. Okay, so I did DISM, online, clean up image, check health.
Right.
Scan health, and restore health.
That's what everybody recommends.
Okay, I did all 3 of those. I did a reboot.
Yeah.
Did not solve the problem. So I don't know what else to do in regards to this.
Windows
and I am running, I didn't see which version of Windows I'm running, but I believe it might be 2022, 20, 22H, whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever
Windows
the
10.
latest version is, that's the one I think is running on there.
Did you get the 22H2 update? I don't think it's out for Windows 10 yet.
I think that's a little bit later here this month, but
Right.
the 11 came out last month.
I know about that one. I'll be touching on that later. But Windows 10, if you went from one version to the next version, there may be slight changes in its behaviors. But if it were the 22H2, there'd be much greater chances of changes.
Okay.
You know, just a heads up, it's going to change stuff. I mean, I don't want to give my whole talk right now.
No. So we don't have a solution. I did do everything that I should do, which is the system file checker and the DISM.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I could try to do?
Is there a Windows compatibility mode that moves within versions of Windows 10?
Yeah, it's
or-
per application.
Yeah. And if
Oh, I
this is
see.
an application program.
Yeah. I tried running the compatibility mode through the troubleshooter,
Yeah.
as well as I've tried to run it in compatibility mode, and I've not had any success with finding out the problem there.
Oh, well, tried.
Did the program ever run?
Oh, it ran flawlessly for years. So yes, it ran just fine on the same PC. It was because of an update that was being installed or didn't get completed, or it's the update itself, which was a security update. It wasn't like a version number change. It was just a small little update that went through. You know, you get them when you're shutting down, installing a security update. That's when, after that is when it occurred. Now, I don't know if it was the security update itself that did it, or was it something that happened when it was doing the shutdown from after installing that?
Well, did you have a restore point that you could activate?
No, this particular PC does not have the hard drive space per se to retain restore points, so I do not have that turned on.
That's a fatal flaw.
Yeah, well, I know it is.
Well,
This is a fatal flaw on a machine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I just want to expand on that. This is a low power machine that has, I think, 1 or 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of EMM memory. So it's really small amount of storage that it gives you is 32 gigs.
Right.
And, you know, most of it's already being used by the OS. There's nothing on this machine but the OS.
Offhand, does that machine have a slot for an SD card?
No, it does not.
The only other option there would be a USB to SD card adapter, and then you can put in a micro SD or a full size SD card for extra storage.
Okay. And then that will give me external storage, but it won't. How am I going to make a restore point go to that external storage?
Well, the restore point says when you want to create it, it lists all the recognized drives. Therefore, you select what drive you want to put it on. You can select all of them. So if you had 10 drives in this machine, like a server, you could select all 10 to do restore points, or just select one, any of the 10 drives. You don't have to select C.
Okay. I did not try that. Of course, at this point, it's too late for me to stop to try to do that. It would only help me in the future.
Yeah, but the other thing that you may need to do there are two tools, but you're not going to like them because they're all DOS based.
I don't mind DOS. DOS doesn't scare me.
Well, it sure scares a hell of a lot of people. But anyway, you need to
I'm a DOS
run.
guy.
You need to open up a command screen. First one to run is sfc space / scan now.
Already did that.
You did.
Okay.
You were in
What
the
did it
thing.
say afterwards?
Oh, it found some issues and it corrected them.
Okay. I still don't trust it. And it's only checking the critical Windows boot files that are required to boot the system up. They don't check anything else. So in addition to that, you have to run DISM utility to check the health of Windows. It'll correct it. And the other is a check disk, but you have to say yes because C is already mounted, and on the next reboot, it will then run the check disk to make sure that there are no other corrupted files on the system.
Okay. Check disk is the only one I did not run today. The DISM, if you rewind our conversation earlier, Bob was quizzing me on that. And yes, I ran DISM for all three of the parameters that you can run on that. That is check health, scan health, and restore health. I've done all three of those. None of those yielded any issues other than the SFC. That's the only one that yielded.
On the DISM, it's a /online /cleanup the
Yes.
image. It does not list off anything it changed. It only corrects the files that it finds corrupted, tells you nothing about it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it didn't yield, and I mean, it didn't tell me that it did anything.
It won't.
But all right, so I did. But the point is, I did run all three processes.
Well, you
Actually, four if you include system file checker.
Well, usually I only do the restore health. I don't bother with the other two versions. The other one that's an outside possibility would be to run the DISM /online /cleanup -image start component cleanup.
Oh wait, you rattled off one I wasn't prepared for. You want to tell you what? Put it in the chat. Write it in the chat how it's supposed to go, and then I'll have it.
Oh, that's cheating.
Well, but it's the better way to go.
And
This
while
way-
we're doing that, one other thing.
Yes, Bob.
You said there might have been an update that didn't correctly install.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it did or did not do an update correctly. The system has been up and running for weeks since that.
What does your update history say? Does it show anything that failed? The update history.
I did not check the update history.
Windows update history.
Okay.
And even if not, you might want to run Windows Update Cleanup, which is a troubleshooter.
History.
Yeah, if the history shows something failed, definitely run the Update Cleanup, because you may be reoffered the update and it may install correctly.
All right, so what do I do? Am I looking for Windows Update and then look for history?
And it's just Update History. It'll be, scroll down a little bit below the look for updates. And your update history will take you to a new page, and it'll show recent updates that should have succeeded.
Okay.
And
it'll tell you if any failed.
Yeah, and if any failed, you definitely need to run Update Cleanup. Even if they succeeded, running the Windows Update Cleanup, if you've never run it before on that machine, might be a good idea at this point.
Okay.
If you're at all suspicious, then an update might not have completely installed.
Since you're running out of some space, doing what I put in the chat, the DIS command, that gets rid of a lot of old accumulating updates that are no longer relevant to the current running version of Windows. These were past patches of any kind that are no longer applicable to the current running version.
Yeah, and let me add to that, related, that there is a thing called storage sense, or just storage in Windows 10. And it includes the old disk cleanup stuff. That's just to save space. It doesn't really do very much for this.
No, it doesn't, but I usually have storage sense turned on anyhow. But
Yeah, you don't want to do the automatic storage sense because that's a little aggressive.
well, so far it hasn't burned me, but I do turn it on automatic as far as that goes.
Okay.
You can also go to File Explorer, right click on the C drive, select Properties, and there's Disk Cleanup there. You run it, and when it gets done, there's an Advanced button that you want to click on because that'll show a lot of hidden stuff that pertains to especially dump files and other things like that. So you want to go to that second level, then do the cleanup.
Is that still present in Windows 10? Because I thought when you click on that, it tries to take you back to the settings panel for storage cleanup.
No, it's still there from what I know.
Good.
Yeah,
Because I've
it's
still
there.
been running it.
Good.
It's
That's
e-
something to do.
And
It's
that's
even
something
on
I have
11.
run on this. I run it on that machine
Good.
periodically because it's so limited on storage. I try to keep it clean. But I don't surf the web on it. I don't do anything other than run this one program. It's a dedicated machine, like in the kiosk mode, if you will.
All the more reason to keep it clean.
Right. But any ideas on why the Windows screensaver will only work in one speed, but not any of the other two speeds that are offered? Any thoughts on that?
Once again, Microsoft reworked some code and it did something.
Well,
Okay.
it could be the rework, like Bob is suggesting, because as they create the patches, you got to understand, it ain't the computers that are creating their own patches, it's human beings, and none of us is perfect. So the end result is you're trying to correct a problem, but you can also introduce problems while you're correcting.
Yeah. Bob or Bill, you had your hand up?
Well, he said nobody was perfect, so
Oh, yeah.
One time I thought I made a mistake, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, we'll mention here too, whether it's Windows 10 or 11, from the date they officially release the upgrade versions like 22H2, they have had such bad results for the last several years. I wait 30 to 60 days before I install them. That way, let somebody else find the problems, let them try and get corrections by the time I do my upgrade, and odds are most issues will be taken care of.
Okay.
I also try and do a verified image backup before I initiate the upgrade.
Not helping me.
These are facts of life on the computer with Windows.
Okay, we've covered my topic. Who else? And if anyone, does anyone else have any other suggestions and things that I should try? Worst case scenario, what? I should reload Windows on this machine?
It's a possibility. But
Okay, so if I should just, let me ask you guys, if I should decide that I want to reload Windows on, I should go and download an image tool creator, make an image on a USB stick and put it in and then tell it I'm going to do a new install?
okay, first question. Is it a 64 or a 32-bit processor?
64.
Okay. There's a lot of 32 still out there. That's why I had to ask. And okay, you got a 64-bit. What you have to do is if you got any data files, copy them off first. Any programs you installed, you got to have a list of them and where to get them. And that's okay, even if it's
I
one.
will be covering a very simple way to accomplish that list and
Okay.
put it into a spreadsheet.
That's fine.
I got that. There's nothing on this machine. There's just
Then-
one program.
Okay,
So-
well, the reason I bring that up is I've done a lot of those little systems in the past and upgrading them. And bottom line is, you got to blow away and do a clean install, period. There's no way around it. You
You
can't
know,
upgrade
that
it.
brings up a point. There is some proprietary software that's loaded on there that came from the manufacturer. That stuff I might have to hunt around to find.
Unless you can back it up the original install files.
No, there's no room. There's nothing on there that I could find, but I could.
Well, I'm just saying, in general, there's so little space, and you got to have a certain amount of space to be able to do an in-place upgrade.
Right.
So you don't have it. None of those small machines have it. So bottom line, it's an absolute clean install. Blow away everything on that drive and reinstall Windows from scratch. Clean it up, and then reinstall your programs and data files.
Okay. All
Have
right.
you run Belark on that?
No, I have not run Belark Advisor on there. What will that help me with on here?
It may locate the incompletely installed update.
It's an
Okay.
outside possibility. Down towards the bottom.
It's a long shot, but it might happen.
But
Okay.
tell you everything you got on there.
Yeah.
With,
Which is okay.
Serial numbers, all that sort of stuff.
All right. I'll try the Belark Advisor too. All right. Let's go on to a new topic. New questions, new direction.
I have a question.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, we were talking about Windows versions. Is 22H2 the current version?
For
Not
11,
for
yes.
Windows 10 yet.
10 isn't out on 22H2 yet.
Okay,
Right.
I'm running 21H2. Is that current?
That's
good.
current at the moment,
Okay.
but figure this month they'll release the new one.
That's what I am on too, is 21H2.
Right.
Yeah.
And you might want to use a little utility to put a block on the upgrade to 22H2. It's from Gibson Research.
Well, at the moment, in the past, they didn't automatically install the upgrade, I should say. So you could go ahead and do your regular updating stuff, take an image backup, verified, and then proceed with the upgrade as a separate step. But it doesn't hurt to do that, or in the update, it gives you the ability to delay updates. It might work on the 22H2, but it usually stops all updates.
Yeah, and when you hit resume, you get everything.
Yes.
You don't get a choice then.
But generally, the upgrade won't go in right away. It's down the road about 3 months or so. Then they start forcing it on you, whether you like it or not.
Well, they strongly suggest and then they force it.
Yes, that's correct. They strongly suggest that you do the upgrade, but I always wait, like I say, 30, 60 days let them find as many of the critical bugs as possible, patch them, and when I go to upgrade, I get all the latest stuff, and I don't run into the problems that other people may run into by being early birds. I used to do the early birds, but the last 3-4 years they've been doing a lousy job on the upgrades. Too many problems by too many people.
Okay, next question, new direction?
Hey, going back to Belark, I got a question that maybe somebody has tried or used. Belark gives you a pretty complete listing of all the software that's installed on your machine.
Right.
The interesting thing is that it also shows, a lot of times it'll show the same program and all of the various updates in order. And it shows what you've used and what's been idle. What I'm wondering is, could you use that as a basis for cleanup to get rid of some older versions of a program by uninstalling it from there?
Well, I'll tell you right now, most updates that go in, uh, unless it's the application program, the best thing to do is use Revo and do a scan after the uninstall, because 98% of all programs leave a lot of garbage in your registry and dead files in your file system. And that's the quickest way of getting them out of the system. If you use programs and features or the new apps in the settings to do an uninstall, yes, it uninstalls the program, but leaves all your garbage behind.
Yeah, I've used Revo quite a bit, and I know it pretty well cleans everything out, but I was just curious if there was some way maybe of getting rid of some of it by just picking up an early version number off of there and going to it and telling it to uninstall it and see what would happen.
Well, the other thing that occurs with all the updaters is sometimes you end up with two versions of the same application in the listing. And the
Yeah,
bad
or
part
more.
is if you uninstall one of them, like what you think is an older version, it wipes out the whole thing.
That's what I was wondering about.
Well, that's because the cleanup process, when you do the registry cleanup and the file cleanup, took out everything with the what would be the live version.
Yeah, okay.
Next question, new direction. None?
Well, I'll tell you something I did the last few days that was kind of interesting. I've got a HP Photo Smart printer that about a month ago decided that it didn't want to recognize the black cartridges in it, and consequently it made printing difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had checked all the cartridges. Most of them were half full or better, and yet for some reason the black still didn't want to come through. Anyway, I finally took it apart and took the print head and put a solution of 50% water and 50% isopropyl alcohol in a little container that I could set the print head into, and I left it sitting there for about an hour. It seemed to melt out most of the old dried up ink that was apparently stuck in there. And I put it through 3 solutions and then just dried it as best I could and let it sit till it dried out. I put it all back together and put it back in the printer. It still wouldn't show up. And I messed around a couple of times, ran clean cartridges and realignment, and that didn't do anything. And I shut it off and turned it back on. And then I heard it over there rustling away, and I went and looked, and the screen said that it was working on a maintenance program. And that's basically all it said. And it was showing a timer. The timer had about 10 minutes left on it. So I had someplace else to go. So I went away and I left it. When I came back later in the afternoon and came downstairs to do something else, so I went around and tried it, and I printed out a couple of the informational forms, and the first one came through kind of sloppy, but the next one cleaned up pretty good. So I ran the clean alignment sessions again and tried it out, and it came up clean. And so it sat for a day and a half, and I just printed some stuff this afternoon, and I've got clean copies again.
Well, that's good. In possibility is that you had that cartridge all gunked up, and when you soaked it,
Yeah,
you got the majority of what needed to come out of it out, and the rest was taken care of by just by time in the in capillary action, as well as cleanup mode. Something else you could try doing, I believe that's a removable cartridge, is it not?
Right.
yep,
Okay, so what we used to do at work is to keep those HP cartridges clean, is we'd have a lint-free cloth that we'd lay on a flat surface, wet it with water, and then put the head down on it and draw towards you. Not going back and forth, just draw one direction towards you. So you have the cartridge, I want to say like, I don't know if you can see my phone, like this. And you just angle it, and then you're physically pulling it backwards.
yeah, yep.
And that's how we cleaned it up. What we noticed at work is you could physically see the orifices as they're pulling, as the ink is coming out, and you could see the lines going right down the sheet. And if any of them were missing, then you know those orifices are dirty. And
Right.
again, find another spot on that lint-free cloth and try it again. Keep doing it over and over and over until you get it to work.
I would add to Harry's, instead of putting in the isopropyl alcohol, put in a couple drops in the water of dish soap detergent, like for manually washing your dishes, like Dawn as an example.
Yeah,
Use that instead, because it's going to try and break down that old ink better than the isopropyl.
Yeah, I think HP inks are water soluble inks.
Right.
They are. It showed up right away when it started melting away. The ink started darkened everything out. That's why I ran through about three different rinses till it finally quit doing that. And then I used paper towel and a damp paper towel, and then wiped it well, like you were saying, front to back, and not cross on it. Worked it until there was nothing drying showing up anymore.
Okay.
Hey, Harry,
Yeah,
did you go to the HP website and take a look at what their suggestions were?
I did look at some of those. A couple of them I had tried, didn't work, didn't seem to do anything at all for me, but yeah, I found that one was one that turned up on YouTube when I just kept searching for different things, and one guy explained what he did with some of the stuff.
I've done that once.
Okay. Anyway, it all works good for the time being again.
Yeah, there's two different problems people run into with printer ink. Either they do a lot of printing and one of two things happens. Either they're using up a lot of cartridges, or eventually the print head declares that it's expired. And that's the end of the printer. There are some brands that do that. And the other thing is, there are people like myself who do very little printing, and the cartridges tend to dry up. Fortunately, in mine, the head is mostly in the cartridge.
I think that's what happened was I hadn't been using it very much for a while, and that kind of.
Yep.
The other thing I found interesting, I found one place that said you could reset the cartridge, the ink cartridges. So I looked around on there, and I did find one little spot that has a dot, kind of a soft dot on the bottom. And so when I had them all out of there, I went one by one and used a paper clip end and just put a little bit of pressure on each one of those dots, which they said would reset the cartridge dating. And so the interesting thing was when I did the last printout on it to give me all the information. All of the print cartridges came up with an 8, 9, and 7, 8, and 9 months dates in 22, and I know a couple of them were older than that. So
Yeah, you're running the risk of the ink deteriorating and further damaging the print head.
Yeah.
And also, it just simply dries up. And if you don't print at least a couple of pages a month, you're in color and black and white.
Actually,
You're really risking some problems.
actually, when you're Bob, when you're talking about the drying out, for the last week, the humidity has been extremely low in our area, and that automatically dries out the ink in the cartridges that are sitting there. So you've got to usually in this area print at least one page every other day or at least 3 times a week just to keep that ink flowing so that it works well. That's the reason why I gave up ink cartridges a long time ago. I use nothing but laser.
Lasers have issues too.
Oh,
Yeah.
all of them have
Now,
issues.
if you don't run a laser in a long time, that dry toner starts caking up,
Right.
and it won't fall across the drum as easily. But at least that you could just get a new drum.
Right.
And in ways,
you can shake cartridges and loosen them up again somewhat
Right.
too. If you're you don't get too aggressive with them.
Right.
Get too aggressive with them, you get powder all over the place.
edge of a garbage can and do this.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean,
And just-
myself and Beata for CCS and that uses HP 1300N printers. These are from the year 2000, and we keep them going. And I've gone through a few cartridges here and there, but when you start getting light print on those, you take the cartridge out of the machine, shake it up like Harry's talking about, not too aggressively, and redistribute the toner ink, and you'll get a little bit more life out of it before you actually have to replace it.
right.
Yeah.
But,
Sometimes I got
most of
another
the-
30 or 40 pages out of a cartridge that seemed to be dead, but shake it around, and sometimes I have to do it every couple of days till it finally just gives up the ghost and won't give me any more. But
Right. And the bad part about some of the lasers, like you're talking about, the drum is a separate item.
yeah,
But for most of the laser jets that people use in the home and small offices are a combination of cartridge with
the drum.
drum.
With
And
the
therefore
image
it's
drum.
all in one.
There's another component is also the fuser
That's
drum.
right. That's
And
separate.
those you have to replace periodically. Those are pricey too.
I
You
haven't
almost,
I haven't replaced one yet, and I've got 5 lasers.
well, I had to do them at work because we
Yeah.
burned through in an industrial setting, we used to
That's
burn.
right. And you were probably using them very, very heavily, and that's why they burned out. Whereas mine's a much, much lighter load, so I don't think they burn out as fast.
Right. Well, I used to do works, files that were 50,000 letters at a clip, personalized. So yeah, that would go through quite a bit. Anyways, let's go on to a new subject. Anyone? Harry, thank you for that one. Who's got another question or a new direction they'd like us to go? Leonard, do you have anything?
And I do. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Leonard.
Okay. My granddaughter, she just took a job in Houston, and she got an apartment there that was fairly new, and her hookups for her computer, and it's in every one of her rooms in the wall. And those hookups looks like almost like the type of hookup you would hook a telephone up to. You
Right.
know?
They might
So,
be.
you think so?
Yeah.
We don't.
No, it's probably an RJ45 spot.
All you have to do is look inside the jack hole and with a little flashlight. And if it's a telephone one, usually you see 2 at most 4 wires. If it's an RJ45, you'll see 8 wires.
Okay. Well, I guess what happened to my son, her father, well, he lives here in Linwood, but he's contemplating getting a new modem for his home, but he's also contemplating rewiring his whole house so that each one of his rooms has got one of those jacks. And I don't know if that's, I guess 2 questions. Is that better than just using Wi-Fi in the house? He's got a pretty decent, I mean, I guess a good location. You know, he's got down in the basement, plus he's got upstairs, and he's got a modem that's not centrally located now, and he knows he's got the centrally located, but he wants to know, one, I guess the first question is, would you recommend staying with Wi-Fi or he rewiring his home house? He is a electrician by trade. I mean, he knows the kind of hookups and stuff like that.
It depends on what he's doing with the internet. Still to this day, even if you have a Wi-Fi 6E modem router, bottom line is Ethernet is the most reliable, steady internet speeds. I'm on Wi-Fi. I've got some of my house I rewired for it, and I do use the Wi-Fi. But Wi-Fi is a radio wave. It is not perfect circles like dropping a pebble in still water and watching the waves go out. They're all irregular, and lots of different things will interfere with those radio signals. Under 2.4, a microwave oven can cause a lot of interference.
Exactly.
On the 5 gigahertz, it's half the distance of 2.4, but at the same time, more things can interfere with that signal, getting it where you want it and need it.
Okay, and I guess he's going to be doing a lot of streaming too, you know.
Yeah, and I, especially for streaming, I use Ethernet. Even though I can use Wi-Fi also, I usually hook up the Ethernet. That way, I get the steadiest signal through.
Exactly.
Leonard, here's what I would suggest. I would tell him to do a hybrid.
That's
That
what I
is, part of the house is going to be wired, and
Yeah.
part of it's going to be Wi-Fi.
Okay, I got you.
That's what
Okay.
I've got.
And if his is a multi-story home,
It is.
I would have the cable come in someplace centrally located. That is the cable from whoever he's getting internet from. That's like a coax cable or from his Wi-Fi internet provider.
I'm familiar with that, yeah.
Have that come into one location, go to his cable modem, then from there he'll go to his router, run a hardwire up to the highest level in the house, and that's where he should put his Wi-Fi access point.
Right.
Is up there, and
That's
the radio signals from there go like an umbrella.
Yeah.
They come from the top down.
Gravity pulls the
not-
radio waves down.
Not from the bottom up.
Yeah.
They go
Right.
from the top down. So if he puts his router, his Wi-Fi access point, at the highest point in his house, that would be the best.
Or
Any-
if you
in
can't put it
addition-
up in the attic area, put it on the top floor of a multi-level house.
Okay,
Right.
now, most people like myself, we got a multi-router modem unit.
Okay.
And so you're saying maybe and I know for a fact, his cable coming in from the outside comes into his basement area. That's where he got his.
Right.
All right. So then, like I suggested from there, he's going to run a cable from there all the way up to his highest level in the house.
That's
Okay.
right.
And that's where he wants to put his Wi-Fi enabled device,
Right.
whatever
Okay.
it could be. He can run 2 different Wi-Fi access points in the house You can run like a mesh system or 2 routers in there to broadcast your signal, one in the lower level, one in the higher level. And that's probably a better way for him to do it, is have multiple ones in there. And then I would also say that the one computer that he needs to have the most secure access to getting to the internet, that one should be wired. Okay? Meaning that the one he's going to be doing his most secure banking and when he's filing his taxes and anything like that, that should be on a hardwired machine.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, that's
Okay.
true.
It's for security. It's a better secure way to go. But it's not mandatory.
Okay, you're telling me that sounds good to me, myself too.
Right.
Well, the other thing too is what you might need to really exercise the Ethernet portion, where you have maybe multiple computers using Ethernet in the home. You may need 5 or 8 port switches, so that the Ethernet cable goes into one of the jacks into the switch, and then you can come out of that switch with 4 wires to 4 different computers, or 7 additional computers on an 8-port switch.
Okay, now he's not only talking computers. It sounds that would also work for his TVs also, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I think I know for a fact he's only going to run maybe 2 computers, and I think what he wants to do is hardwire his TVs also, which is
Well, I'm in the living room right now. I've got 2 designated areas. I got the TV and some computers off to the side here on my left. It has a switch, an 8-port switch, and most of the ports are used up. And then over here is a cable that came from that one over there, right down at my feet. I got 4 more computers all on one switch. And
wow.
that's one wire coming from the modem cable that's at the backside of my house. That's
Okay.
where the modem router is located at. And the wire goes down in through the wall, through the basement, back up into the wall with a wall plate. And I just plug in one cable there. It goes into the switch locally there. One of those wires comes over to this switch over here. It's the way of sharing the Ethernet.
Okay, I think that's exactly what he's trying to do. Can I get any suggestions on brand names or anything like for modem or switch?
There's tons of them out there, the modem routers, even whoever his service provider is.
I think right now it's Comcast, but he wants to get away from them and get his own another system.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, but I mean, some people buy a equivalent modem router, own it, and not rent it.
That's what he wants to do. That's what I
fine.
do. That's what I do.
That's doable. But to really get the Ethernet to work well, you got to have switches.
Okay, and that's
All right.
Okay.
We don't want to throw too much at Leonard because he's probably new at this, but talking about switches versus routers and modems, those are ways to address this. But if I will say, the answer to your question, Leonard, is he should buy a cable modem, and I hope you're going to take some notes here. A cable modem.
Okay.
And you want and I'm going to spell this out, DOCSIS. That's DOCSIS 3.1.
Right. Compliant.
Okay. So he's going to want to go and shop for a cable modem, DOCSIS 3.1.
Got it.
All right. About $100.
Okay, that's not, the money is not.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to take the signal that comes from his internet service provider, and that's going to translate it so that he could then connect it to his router.
Got it. Okay.
But before we go to the next step, I need to backtrack a little.
Okay.
This cable modem that's running DOCSIS 3.1 is dependent on what kind of service he's getting from his internet service provider. If he is getting, what do I say? If he's getting high-speed internet, like a gigabit service that's coming
Okay.
into the house,
Okay,
he's going to have to get a unit from them.
okay, I know, yeah, I can imagine.
All right, because he's going to be getting fiber optic. That's what I was looking for. He's going to
Okay.
probably get fiber optic to the house. That's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
All right. And he'll probably have to rent, or he can buy, depending upon the company. But usually you rent that device from the provider. So this is an asterisk, if you will,
Okay,
on what I was just describing to you. All right. So take that conversation, put it on the side. We now have the cable that comes out of the cable modem or from the fiber optic modem
okay,
going to be an RJ45. You want to write that down. And that is going to be an Ethernet cable that's going to connect to his router.
High in the house.
okay,
Correct. At that point, he could run that cable all the way to the upstairs from there, all the way to the basement, run it up through his walls, put it through his walls, put it up in the attic, and have it come down to his upper floor.
Right.
You don't
Okay.
want to put the router in the attic because it gets too hot up there.
okay,
All right. So in the Midwest, maybe, but not really. You don't want to put a cable modem
we're
up
talking here in Chicago.
or electronics up in an attic. It's too
Okay.
hot, it's too humid, it's too much wet fluctuation. So
Correct,
you want to put it at the highest level of the house, and then from that point, he could decide, am I going to run cables down to each level down? And he could put a router on each one of those levels, coming from the top level all
oh,
the way
I
down.
got, okay, I got you.
Okay, or he could do them from the bottom up. He could also go and buy a mesh network. At this point, the world's his oyster on what he wants to get. Brand wise, now I'll ask the group here if they got any recommendations. Asus is a very good brand. Netgear is a good brand.
Okay, I got Netgear.
What is it? Orbit is also, they make a mesh network system. It's really good. Anyone else want to chime in on another good one?
I don't know exactly how good they are, but you got TP Link and I can't think of the other one now. I think it starts with a D. D-Link, maybe?
Oh, D-Link. I would say D-Link and TP-Link are a step down from Asus and Netgear.
Well,
I
Well,
I-
Asus is funny.
Well, I think it's a case
Yeah.
where is he going to try and do the Wi-Fi just by one unit, or is he going to do it by multiple units? And therefore, the cheaper ones might be just as good, especially if you're going to try and do one of these units per level.
right. I think, Leonard, we gave you some good information.
I think you gave me some great information.
And I'm going to go to Tom in just a moment, but I will say next month, you tell your son to chime in too.
Okay, can
And it's
he,
better to talk
okay,
to him in this group setting. This way he can join in and be part of this group. Tom, what do you have to say?
Well, I have a question.
Oh,
With all these cables you've got coming out of, one going into a unit and 3 or 4 coming out and getting spread around, are we not losing signal strength?
Wrong.
the cables that are coming out do nothing to your
Right.
signal stream.
It's one cable coming from the original source going to switches. The switches automatically, by frequency, chop up the signal capability per port on the switch.
Okay, time
And
slice.
there's no degradation.
It's time slice.
Yeah.
And the Ethernet cables that you're running do not have any bearing on what's going on the radios that are transmitting the Wi-Fi signal.
okay,
Thank you.
So if you want to look at it nitty gritty, inside this box that's going to be your router is a small little computer, and the computer runs at, what is it, 60 megahertz, just like our electricity does. And it's cycling around so fast, 60 times a second. And it's splitting up its time across all of its ports as well as the antennas. And it's quite capable of doing this. This is what it's made to do. So the more you add to it won't matter, because that's what it's designed to do, to pool all these ports, to manage them all. It has chips in place to handle everything. Not a problem.
Now, if he runs wire throughout the house to eliminate Wi-Fi, he can do that too.
Sure.
He can, but I'll say that there's nothing preventing him from doing that.
Okay.
It'll be cumbersome. And if he's using a tablet, what are you going to do? Hook a tablet directly up to a cable?
Well, I think he's thinking about hooking it up to his TV, but more than cable too now.
Right, but the TV is only one of your many devices that you have in the house. If he's got a TV, that's his display, but he might have a Roku or an Apple TV or
Amazon Fire Stick.
Thank you, a Fire Stick. Each one of those streaming devices need to connect up to the internet, and you could either run a cable to them if they're a network cable to them if they allow it, like the Apple TV does, but I don't think a Roku does.
Some of the Rokus do.
Oh, the Roku does, and I think the stick also does.
Right. Well, okay. I'm just giving you an example of, a lot of those easily run on Wi-Fi, or more easily run on Wi-Fi than they do on a cable. But the fastest service will be from a physical cable that's connected to it. The fastest, most reliable service will be a direct connect via your Ethernet.
Now, if you get a Roku stick or a Fire Stick, that's Wi-Fi only. However, there is Roku cube-like devices that allow Ethernet, and there's a Fire Cube that allows an Ethernet connection as well for the Amazon service.
Oh, okay.
Something else to consider with the modem is if you're buying the modem, it's going to be your modem. You want to make sure it's going to be compatible with your provider.
Right, and your provider will have to give you an idea of what their requirements are.
They got you. Okay.
Okay, and that's the first place he needs to start, is what's coming in through the wall, and how is he going to adapt that signal to what he's going to use in the house.
Got you. Okay.
What kind of cable modem does he need to work with whoever he's shopping for? Okay. Now, Comcast, you could have gigabit network coming in via fiber optic, but I doubt it if Comcast is offering that, but maybe. I don't know. In Texas, you guys.
I don't know. No, he's here. He's in Linwood.
Okay.
No, but see, when he went down to visit my granddaughter, he noticed that she had connections coming out of the wall, and she was connecting her computer directly to, hardwiring it to the computer and also to her TVs, and it was coming out of the wire. My son is also familiar with fiber optics also. Like I said, he's electrician. He's been with the union forever. He's been 25, almost 30 years. But he did work with fiber optics. He worked for NBC for a while, and they had that, so he's familiar with it. So I don't know if he wants to run that type of line or not. But anyway, you gave me a lot of information. He wanted me to ask you guys about this so I can at least get him started with this. I think basically, I think he's trying to get rid of Wi-Fi because it hangs up so much on it.
If the Wi-Fi is hanging up on him, it means he doesn't have full coverage in his house.
Well, the other thing too that can be a factor is that how many neighbors does he have around him with internet? Okay,
Probably a lot.
Okay, but that's the problem. They clobber each other because they have too many people on the same channel in the frequency range. 5 gigahertz is the best. They currently have 3 or 4 ranges of channels. But when you get gamers, they start finding a way of combining multiple channels into one mega channel to give them very solid communications on Wi-Fi. But it
Okay,
kills everybody else around them.
that may be too, and he's a I'm gonna be honest with you, he's a gamer also.
Well, for that there on your phones, I don't care whose phone it is, there are in the stores Wi-Fi analyzers. He has to find one that shows him what is active in his area and how strong the signals are. The weaker they are, you don't care about them. The ones that are close, that are strong, you want to have your house on a different channel than those neighbors are on, so that
Okay,
you
I
are
see.
not interfering with each other.
I got you.
He needs to be part of this meeting next month.
And he will be. I'll make sure. I'll remind him.
Because we're throwing a lot at you, Leonard, and I'm not expecting you to be able to relay it properly
Okay,
or
I'm keeping
effectively.
it up. I'm kind of with you.
Just remember on YouTube, this video will be up there, so you can have him replay it.
Oh, that's true. Yes, we'll post this on our YouTube channel, and he can go and watch it on there.
Okay, and he will. Plus I'm gonna make sure he's with you guys next month also.
Okay.
And I appreciate this.
All right. Any more questions on this subject?
Well, there was one thing I was going to say. One thing I was going to say is you can ask your provider what they've got, but make sure you ask what they're going to have too, because they can say, well, I've got this today, and that's what you're going to go out and buy. But in 5 years, they may alter it drastically.
That's
So you
true
can
too.
be careful.
If they're willing to share that information.
Well, yeah, that's true, but you can ask.
Okay.
Please ask. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, today's internet connections are not forever.
No.
That's why I said 5 years.
There is a whole new generation of communications just over the horizon.
Yeah.
And I can believe that.
Wi-Fi.
Once they build out the infrastructure, it's going to be really different.
Wi-Fi 7 is right around the corner.
Yeah, and in terms of the generations they talk about in both cell and to your house, 5G.
Yeah, but you gotta be careful. 5G from like T-Mobile as an example, that means the 5th generation of cell service signal.
Right.
It's not the same as 5G in Ethernet, which is 5 gigahertz signal.
No, G and gigahertz are just two different designations entirely. The 5th gen, which is now in cell service, is supposed eventually to be applied to getting it to your house. And that's called fixed 5G or 5G fixed. And that requires approving some new infrastructure and working something out with the FAA.
I don't know if this relates to the same subject, but I got a 2011 Suburban that I got right around the time I retired. But, it came with OnStar. And I rely on that quite a bit. And I've been getting emails lately saying that I'm going to lose that because the service that I got is a 2G, and anything that's earlier than 15, they cannot change. Because they're going to 5G now.
Right.
And
that's absolutely correct.
So they told me I was SOL, on everything.
Yeah. That's one of the problems. It's like your old cell phones. You had 2G, 3G, 4G, 4 LTE. Those are only the 4s and 5s are still working. And really, you only want the 4 LTE versus the 4G. And the 3G and older, if they haven't already disappeared in your area, they are going to disappear, I think, by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, next question, new direction.
Thanks again, fellas.
You're welcome. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask about? Wayne, what about you? Wayne Atwater, you have not been around, so let's hear from you.
Well, I moved into assisted living and they had horrible Wi-Fi. So I had a serious discussion with them and they went to Comcast, put a new system in the building, and so it seems to work perfect for me.
Whoa, you actually got the whole complex to change their internet?
Well, I contributed a couple $100 to help them out.
It's amazing how much money can talk over there, huh?
Yeah.
And in actuality, it was Comcast probably was the one who was, dragging their feet on upgrading the system there to accommodate everybody.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was very intermittent. And when I mentioned it to him, the managing lady came to me one day and she says, "Your comments were the straw that broke the camel's back. And we're going to change the whole system." So it took them about horsing around about 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden, the new one online.
All right,
so it's working well. Every picture is clear as a bell that I'm watching you on.
Is this wired or wireless?
Wireless.
Okay. And is it everybody has access to it?
Well, anybody that's got the equipment to pick up Wi-Fi.
That means clobbering each other to some degree.
Right. Well, I'm wondering, is it just like an open account that everybody can log into?
Yes.
Okay. Watch your security.
That's right. Security is going to be a prime thing. And if several of you are on the Wi-Fi at the same time, it's one channel, it's shared, and therefore you'll be clobbering each other probably at peak times of the day.
Yeah. That would probably be what, about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Maybe 3 o'clock in the morning when people sleep, they're streaming their,
And these are assisted living people.
Well, don't forget, 2 in the morning is when Microsoft does all the maintenance on your computer.
Oh, that's true.
What would be the alternative for me to strike for?
You would have to get your own service.
Yeah.
And that would be whatever service is available to you. Probably something like the T-Mobile system would be the easiest to implement, unless you want to subscribe and pay to have a cable ran to your apartment or your place that you're living, which I'm sure Comcast would love to do, and have your own equipment there. But if you don't need it, I would go with maybe a T-Mobile system. That's just a suggestion. Anyone else got a different thought?
If you don't use it a lot, you just live with whatever the conditions are.
The situation that Wayne is in, you got to remember, this also conceptually applies to the people who are in apartment buildings or condos as well. Tom O'Connor is one such person, and so he has his own service through his phone. He tethers 2 computers to the phone, but originally he had the old 2.4 gigahertz phone, and he found out by working with me that he had to switch to a 5G and improved things dramatically. But it's also, where is he in the building versus the nearest tower that he is going to connect to? That's not always a clear line of sight.
Now, What about this account verification, second verification? Does that give you any protection?
Oh, two-factor authorization?
Yes, it
Yeah.
helps you some.
Yes, but Wayne, we're confusing the issue here. And the short answer to your question, two-factor authorization is basically saying that whatever computer you're using to access the internet is okay to use whatever account you're trying to access. So let's say you're trying to access your bank account, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the bank account says we want to send you an authorization code to your phone. You
Right.
send it to your phone, you type in that number, and then the bank says, okay, you are Wayne, and you are legit, you're on this PC and you're legitimate to talk to me, so we can go ahead and do anything. That is that particular session, who you're talking to, but you're on a party line. You remember party lines from way back when you were young?
Oh, wow.
Right.
Well, you were maybe middle aged for you, but basically
Right.
your internet is like a party line. Okay.
Mhm.
And anybody can eavesdrop on your internet session, even though you have a secured discussion between you and the bank. Somebody else could be having a tin can and listening. It's going to be encrypted, so they're going to get gobbledygook, but it doesn't mean they can't listen to it on that tin can.
But if I don't talk,
Well, what he's alluding to is basically in a party line situation like an apartment, condo, or your retirement home. Generally speaking, because you're sharing the resources, you need a VPN on each of your computing devices so that when you are connected to the internet, it's always encrypted information. So that eavesdropper that Sanford referred to, a man-in-the-middle attack, all they get is encrypted information. They can't use it, they can't understand it, and your communications is more secure. It's not an absolute. VPNs go to a server, and once it leaves the server to your destination point, it is normal internet traffic. It just stops the people that are closest to you from eavesdropping on whatever you're doing.
Which might be a good solution for you, Wayne, is you could just set up a VPN with somebody and pay whatever it is a month to have the account accept access to it. That's a good point. Tim,
no,
thanks.
I never type anything in when I'm accessing an account. I copy and paste.
It doesn't matter on that. The thing is,
I was thinking of a keylogger.
you got to remember that when you're on Wi-Fi, that's a radio broadcast. It's going 360 degrees. Anybody that is on the same channel may be able to intercept that transmission and might be able to understand what you are saying or doing on the internet at that time. SSL helps, but a VPN would protect other eavesdroppers from picking up anything that you're doing.
Can I hardwire or go Ethernet by, they have a cable termination in each room.
If you got Ethernet, yes, you can, and you can get a separate cable. You plug into that wall outlet and have it long enough to reach where you normally use your computer. Now, if you have more than one device that can handle Ethernet, then you need a small switch, a 5-port switch. That way, that one cable comes from the wall, goes into the switch, and 2 shorter cables come out to each of the other devices.
Okay, so that's one option. The number 2 option would be to take that Ethernet cable that comes out of the wall and plug it into your own router. configure your own router, and then that's what you're going to use to access the internet.
Is
Yes,
that more secure?
And that, oh, absolutely, that's more secure.
and besides that too, if you take that route, you have usually 4 ports in the back for Ethernet cables directly to other devices. You can select your own Wi-Fi channels so that your channel is different from the rest of the people in the complex.
Mhm.
I hope you took some good notes here, Wayne.
I got my little recorder running.
Okay, you're good at that. And Wayne, you could always contact me directly, and I could help you out too.
Great, okay.
All right, I need to wrap up this open forum, so I want to ask, is there any last questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay. On occasion, my desktop computer jumps into a blue screen and the mouse goes a little crazy. As soon
Blue
as that
screen of
happens,
death?
I shut it. What was
Is it
that?
blue screen of death?
I was talking. Go ahead.
Is it blue screen of death or just a blue screen?
Well, a blue screen telling me that I'm having some kind of a trouble with
Okay.
the computer.
Okay.
That's a blue screen of death. That means you've
Oh.
got you likely have corruption in critical files of the operating system. That's where you got to run SFC scan now, and you may have to run the DISM restore health.
Also, the possibility of a driver issue.
Yes, that is always a possibility, but they're less likely on the Ethernet and Wi-Fi drivers. It's more usually your display and printers, especially USB type printers.
And mouse, keyboard, and touchpad.
A mouse and keyboard, I've never had one bad driver, ever.
In systems that have a touchpad, that can happen.
Well, unless it goes corrupt, and anything inside the computer on the storage media can get corrupted, especially when you don't get a proper shutdown.
But more commonly, there could be a graphics issue, and graphics drivers, even though they say graphics, are often associated with sound as well.
Yes, that's very true, especially NVIDIA's drivers and Realtek drivers.
Realtek Intel.
Those two are very notorious.
So in a case like that I'm having is I'll have typed something in or use the mouse to pick something, and it's a wireless. And at this time, I'll be sitting back to wait for a response and then be starting to write some notes on something. And I'll catch out of the corner of my eye that it's at the blue screen with some kind of documentation going on it.
Well, the near the bottom of that screen, it usually gives you a message. I've been having one machine that has had a problem, and that one said basically a power failure state occurred. That's important, and it turned out there were 2 drivers. But one of them was for a Wi-Fi built-in laptop camera. The other one was for APCI power battery adapter. When I eliminated those 2, the problem disappeared.
Okay, I need to cut you off, and I want to tell you, Tom, I put a link in the chat. Click on that link. This is not your problem that this is talking about, but this is talking how to solve Windows issues such as yours. And in there, they're going to tell you what you need to type in to do a system file checker, as well as a DISM checker that are in this list that are on here. And they give you all the text you need to type. So read through that quick article and run these scenarios, run these tests on your machine. They should help fix your problem.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I need to end this. We went through a lot of topics tonight, but we need to get to our presentation by Bob. Bob Primak, would you like to take over the floor?
Okay. In just a moment. I'm going to try to switch over to a slideshow. And let's do one of those, screen share. And I'll do my whole screen. Everybody got my screen, which I'm about to free up from this little monster. And I'll pull the browser down as well. There, that ought to be the beginning of my slideshow. And I am going to, that didn't work.
Can you make it full screen?
I'm not sure whether I want to do that at the moment.
Okay.
Let's try to do that. I won't be getting your reactions if I do that, but let's start with the slideshow. Okay, now I have to find a way of getting you guys out of here.
We don't.
Okay.
You're seeing a
don't see
black
what you
box
see.
over this, right?
No, I got the first screen of your presentation.
Okay, with no black box.
No.
Right.
It's still going to make it difficult for me to read the slides.
Are you talking about black patches on your screen?
No, I'm talking about the Zoom panel.
Yeah, those are black usually. You got to go up to view options, and in one of the it's the there's an option in there to hide those boxes. Is what it amounts to.
No, it's not. There's only zoom ratio, exit full screen, or side by side mode.
No, if I stop the share for a moment, I view,
No, it's not under the view up in the upper right corner. It's the little bar at the top of the screen when you're sharing the screen. There's a green area and a red area. The red area has a drop-down menu and there's a hide option. We don't have it on.
I have a green area that says you are screen sharing and a red that says stop share.
Right, but there's a drop-down menu option.
There, the more.
If you can't figure it out, Bob, just continue with your presentation.
Just a moment. Hide floating meeting.
Yeah, those hides get rid of those black splotches on your screen.
All it does is hide the controls. Never mind.
Never mind, Bob. Just continue forward and show us your presentation.
Yeah, but I don't know how to do that in this situation.
Show it the way you have it here on the screen. Go through your slides.
I can't. I have you guys blocking it. I did not anticipate this, and
sometimes
I'm gonna have to try a different share.
You can try grabbing that area that's blocking you and see if you can slide it over to the side.
It will go. It will slide.
I'm not able to do this.
You know, everybody. If you grab it,
it's still covering things I need to see.
The other side.
Yeah, maybe you could pull us over to the left side instead of being on the right side.
Yeah, then it covers things I need to see. Okay, well, anyway,
all the way down at the bottom, it'll hide itself. It spreads out at the bottom. It brings to the bottom. It'll spread out toward the bottom.
It isn't doing it. I don't know. Nope.
So in the view in the upper right-hand corner, you can't. Right now, I see it's side-by-side gallery. Can you do side-by-side speaker? Will that help you?
I don't know what to do. Side-by-side speaker. Let's see what that does.
Yeah, go to the speaker view. Try that.
All right, we'll try again with the share. And what I'm trying to do is that same problem. I do not know how to make this go away.
You can, up in that same area, there's a little black ribbon there that you can grab, and it should go all the way down to and spread out at the bottom. I did it on my computer.
It isn't doing it. Nope. I can't get rid of the pictures.
So we're blocking what you need to use to access your LibreOffice, right?
Yeah, I can't get to my controls.
Can you right click it?
I don't.
What controls is it you need?
Where is the minimize? There. That got the minimize. I think now I can put you in a, okay. But if I go to the slideshow, then you're going to be someplace I
Try going to the
want.
desktop and then bring it up. Maybe that'll make a difference. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Well, anyway, this is going to start out with my new PC. And I can't advance the slides.
Even with just using the arrow keys?
Nope, can't do anything.
Can't you click on them?
Try closing LibreOffice and reopening it.
No, that's going to take 10 minutes to reopen on this.
Wow.
It takes a long time. I'm going to have to show it this way. Anyway, this is starting with a little overview of what I ended up buying. I bought a Powerspec PC.
Go back to share screen.
Where? Oh, where am I?
The center of the bottom.
I am sharing the screen now.
Okay.
Every time I go to share screen, I can't minimize. There's two things I can't do at the same time. I can't minimize you guys and share my screen.
Hit the escape key and see if that'll take it out of the full screen mode.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that did that on mine.
That's normal. And then you can resize the window and you still have your taskbar at the bottom.
I'm not having any success.
Do you still have the chat open?
Okay, here's the chat.
Close the chat.
Okay. Chat is now closed.
See if they
And
get more real estate.
It almost sounds like something's overloaded, that you're short resources.
No, I'm not. Zoom just isn't behaving at all. And I can't do anything about it.
Haven't run into the problem you're having.
Zoom won't. Zoom isn't giving me the options that it used to.
Are you on Linux or Windows?
I'm on Windows.
Okay. I'm on Windows 11 and it's non-supported. It's not the H2, 22H2, but I have not run across the problem you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, best
You're
I can
talking
do.
about when you have your screen
All
up,
right.
we have the gallery showing on one side, which gets in your way.
As soon as I do share screen, I can no longer minimize Zoom. I
But
don't.
the gallery showing up somewhere.
Yeah, it keeps on showing up, and I.
Okay,
I'm not going.
back up in that right-hand corner on the view. If you go to, well, it says a standard, but you can take it down to full screen, and then it'll put it there. And then there's another block on the top of that that has a single line that brings it down to just one small box, which shows who's talking.
No, I'm not getting any of that.
There's also a thought you could send one of us your slideshow and we could display it for you.
Well, let me do what I can with what I've got.
You can even put it in the chat.
Let's do it this way. Oh, I see what you meant by bringing it all the way down, and then it goes to the bottom. That might help. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing.
Oh,
okay.
Nuts.
I can't go to full screen slideshow though.
Just do it
that
the
would
way
ruin
you're
it.
doing it.
This way I'll be all right. Okay. Well, anyway, this is my new. You guys can see the slides now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my new PC, and I went to the Micro Center and bought a Powerspec Tower PC, and this is the model. And I have a PDF form that I'll put into chat eventually. I will allow some time for questions if we have enough time. And I have numbered the slides. The specs of my system are that it's a 12th gen Alder Lake 4i5, and it's got a lot of these different specs. And so it's a very up-to-date PC, and it is it has a Wi-Fi mini card. PCI 1 refers to that slot, and it's a very short slot. And then there's a bigger PCI 16 slot, which will come into play a little bit later. So what I did was I added an additional card that gives me more USB ports. What I was concerned about was the speed of the USB ports. As sold, the computer has the old 5 gigabit per second, and there's a lot of different names that they've given to this. It was a USB 3.2 Gen 1, whereas the speed of 3.2 Gen 2 is 10 gigabits per second. The card itself is organized in a way that you have some limitations on what you can plug in without losing some speed. So basically it adds 2 USB buses. So then I have as low as USB 2.0 version ports, and I really don't have a whole lot of use for those. They're mostly mouse and keyboard, and that's about it. So if I want to plug in extra drives, I really did want to have the faster ports. And then I have more of the specs about the back panel and all of that. But what kind of amazed me was, as advanced as the processor is, and this is supposed to be a modern, up-to-date tower PC, it still had the old USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, which are limited to 5 gigabits per second. That's mostly because it's not a terribly expensive system, but it's something I wouldn't expect in such an advanced machine with such a processor. And so all of my enclosures and all of my SSDs are performing well. I added a second internal SSD, and that's in an M2 slot. So that gives me lots of storage for some of the things I want to do. And I don't think I need to bore everybody with all the details of all the different Linux configurations I've done. And also recently kind of messed up and then had to rebuild. Flash drives really don't care what kind of speed they have. I have one Thunderbolt only enclosure, and it's not going to work with this PC because it just simply does not have Thunderbolt 3 support. Okay, more about the specs, and I also have a comparison with my existing Panther Canyon NUC. Now, the reason why I got this new PC was that I thought the NUC had died. But because of the way the BIOS is on this NUC, it if the internal SSD dies, you aren't necessarily going to see the splash screen that says Intel. So you don't know that that black screen you're getting is not an indication that the PC has gone bad or that the BIOS has gone bad. It can happen from just one internal component failing on some PCs, and this was one of this was something I was not too happy to find out. But now that I have a second PC, I can do other things with it. Now there is one thing about external drives when they have to operate at fast speeds or when they have to carry large data loads. I found that this required rock solid direct connections to the actual ports on the PC. I was running into I/O errors and file system corruption if I tried to make large transfers and I used hubs. If I use a hub attached to a single USB port, even a powered hub, something happens, and I suspect it's just that the data don't have enough bandwidth. And this can really mess up the operation of a computer. So I don't want to have the file system corruption because checking and repairing file systems is no fun. And definitely not what I want happening during a backup or a recovery or a fresh recovery operation. So that happens both with NTFS and Linux X4 file systems. What I was going to do was ask at this point if there were any questions or anybody wanted to know anything about my setup before I go into perhaps a few things about Windows 11.
Did you say it was an Asus motherboard?
The motherboard is by Asus, and it has a particular spec to it. If we want to go back, we can go back to what that spec is. I just want
to. It's a regular size. It's not a mini size.
It's a full size. This is a full size tower.
Yeah, okay.
Let me show you. That's a full size tower.
Yeah. Okay.
And the interior is one of these Asus motherboards. Did I make a note of it right here as to what motherboard it is? I probably didn't. I made a note as to the card that I added in. No, I don't think I actually put that down. But there is a reference in here to all the specs, and I'm guessing that it's an H261 Asus, which is not one of their. It is not one of their high-end things. It's not for gaming. And what I want to do is, okay. Any other questions about the hardware?
How many drives did you put inside?
It came with an SSD, and it was a pretty decent one. And I added another SSD. Each one of those is, I believe it's a 1 gigabyte, which I partitioned. So it's like having 400 or 500 gigabyte drives in there.
Terabyte.
500 terabyte drives. 500 terabyte drives in there.
I would hope not a 1 gigabyte.
No, it's not gigabyte. It's 500 gigabytes is what I did mean, because they were originally 1 terabyte drives.
So now you have 4 drive letters out of those?
Yes.
Okay.
That's internal. External, I run an enclosure also, which adds an additional handful of partitions, which are only used with Linux, except for one thing. There's a Windows data partition, because I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and store, even temporarily, data inside the computer with no external backup. Eventually, I actually back things up to hard drives, but that's a different issue. That was where I ran into the need for more ports and for more solid connections. So what I did. Now, here's the actual heart of it. Whenever you get a new PC, here are some steps which it is wise to take. And I didn't want to really take too much time on the hardware specs because anybody can review them from the PDF, which I will post. The first step is with the PC setup. Windows comes partially installed and you have to finish the installation yourself, make the accounts, and I made local accounts. And so I also found I had a partially installed, I think it was ESET, a third-party security.
Right.
And I did not want that on my computer. I didn't want it ever accidentally doing something to activate itself. So I got rid of that and various other cleanups. Micro Center is very good about not putting too much junkware on their computers. So that was nice. The next thing you do is you run all the Windows updates that you can. And either then or after that, you'd update drivers if there are any driver updates. And that's where I came into my first gotcha. There are two security features in Windows 11, which in my machine were turned on by default. They are called core isolation and protected memory. And both of those third-party drivers are not yet up to speed with the signing and the certificates for that. And therefore, they didn't have the right codes. And I had to switch off those features. It would have been nice to have them. Sanford, you have a question?
Aren't those two items a BIOS setting?
No. They are something Windows 11 turns on, and they actually involve the TPM chip,
Right.
TPM2 security.
Okay.
Right.
And TPM2 is not something you want to mess with in a BIOS. Two reasons. One, if you turn off the TPM2, I think Windows 11 is going to complain or not even boot.
Yeah.
And second, you will run into problems where your security regarding USB devices will be compromised.
Can you elaborate on core isolation?
No, maybe Tim can.
Basically speaking, since we are in the age of multiple cores, you may have two or more jobs running on separate little cores. The isolation prevents a crash in one core from taking down the whole system. It'll only take down the program running in that one core.
Does that have security implications?
Yes.
Such as virtualizing or containerizing?
Yes, and there's a new instruction in some of the chips that are Windows 11 compliant that are not across the board, has to do with a security feature in 11 that it requires.
Yeah. One other thing that Tim said with regard to USB devices, every time you plug one in, TPM2 security may require a security code. I did some research on this, and it looks to me as though that happens in conjunction with some group policy, local group policy settings. In other words, there's this thing called layered group policies where you can specify classes of USB devices that must be security signed. And if you don't turn that on, I haven't run into any problems. If you did turn that on through group policies, then you would have to do exactly what Tim has described. You would have to put in a code or have the drive set up in such a way that it supplies the code through a shim, which is a tiny little program. I will get into Secure Boot in just a moment. That does operate that way. And that gets into bootable USB drives under Windows 11. That's an interesting little subtopic. But anyway, there are a lot of features in Windows 11 that are not so much gotchas. And once I get out of this slideshow, if there are some questions about how the interface changes have happened, I don't know if we'll have time to get into that. We might want to set some time aside in other group meetings or at a future meeting to really go into what are the changes in the interface and what can we expect. That's really sort of a separate subtopic. I just wanted to do an overview of what I experienced on the first look. So I had my basic setup done, but I don't have all of my software in, and I haven't transferred my personal data yet. Before I do anything that's going to do that, because something might go wrong, I'm going to image with Macrium Reflect, and I'm going to have a backup of my base configuration. Then I can begin figuring out how to do things like collecting and transferring a list of installed software. I'm going to switch my share for a moment, or at least try to call something up. And it is going to be, I have the spreadsheet somewhere in my notes, I believe. I'm not going to take too much time finding it, but it might be, okay. No.
Do a search.
Yeah, I can do a search. Yeah, I'm not going to search for it. What I'm going to do is instead, I am going to see whether I can call up a program from my desktop. Briefly, we're going to see my desktop, and we're going to see, I'm going to try to get some, up here. Where have I got the, I'm in my user account. I might still be able to run this. Okay. I think I'm going to end up having to enter an administrator password. Okay. And this is normally used just to see what needs updating. And I'm going to, I am going to, I don't want to update this right now. So anyway, what I'm going to do is put that down for a little while. Once it scans, it will check and see what might need updates, but that's not, and it's going to do that anyway. Okay, good. This is what I wanted it to do. So it'll show you what needs updating. But what's important is this whole list, which contains all of the important software that's on my computer, except for portable apps. I can, if I can find it, I can export. And I can export it as a spreadsheet file. And it will come up as a CSV, which I can then take up into LibreOffice or Microsoft Office. And I will have a spreadsheet showing all of this information, including, if I had shown the column, there is another column out here that I've activated in my administrator account, which shows the installed, which shows the installed location, where it was in the computer. So anyway, when you're doing updates, it's nice to be able to know where the detection was made in your system, because that can give you a clue in something that's got a really cryptic name that maybe it's part of something else. And what really needs updating is the bigger program. But anyway, if I have this list, I can work from that list to install software which I may need. And let me bring you guys down. So that makes it easier to install the third-party software. You know, we aren't like Linux. We don't have repositories where everything lives all in one place. So you have to reach out all over the place for third-party software, especially if you use non-Microsoft software. So I also did a little personalization, and you saw some things in my desktop that I've done the desktop by image, the wallpaper, and I've done some other things. I then added in Zoom and other utilities, and pretty much that was it. I was ready to go. I use a lot of utilities, but basically, if you have an office program, in this day and age, if you have a communication program and an email program, you pretty much got most of what you need. A web browser, maybe a couple of different web browsers. And as I say, I found out things about the need to attach backup drives, especially directly to the ports, not to use a hub, because I ran into problems when I did. So that was about it in terms of how I got it up and running. So, and I have a little bit in here about why I don't dual boot Linux from the same SSD as Windows is on. That has to do with how my NUC PC, how that drive died. If I had my Linux on there, I would have had nothing I could use from the old configuration. That would have been a real problem.
Now, do you have a switch then to go to one drive or the other?
No, it's actually just plugged in as a USB device. And this allows, booting is a different matter. It operates as a multi-boot, just like you do with a dual boot. You have to shut down and then start up again. And then it goes to a startup screen, which gives a menu that allows you to select. In my case, this menu is grub from Linux.
Oh, you run the Linux on an external drive, and you have the internal SSD for the storage then.
For Windows. Windows does not like, usually it does not like to run from external drives. You can trick it out so it will, but it doesn't like to do that. Most Linux is perfectly happy to run from external drives, to boot from external drives, and the booting is compatible with TPM. And this is where we get into TPM2 security keys. I use just Ventoy. The reason is, if you try to use Linux-based bootable USB drives with TPM2 security, it's going to throw up a screen that says you can't do that. It's a security violation. And you've tried to change the security environment. On my EFI BIOS, I have a setting that says other OS. But when that happens, here's what Ventoy does that standalone ISOs are not going to do. I'm going to show a little video if we can see that.
Yep.
It is going to give, now this is hard to read, but it's going to give, instead of a red screen, it'll give a blue screen because it detects that a shim is running, and even though the verification has failed, there's another step that happens. And that is when you hit the OK, this is slowed down tremendously from a very fast-moving animated GIF. It says then press any key to begin the MOK key management. And that's just managing the TPM security keys. And when you do press any key, you come up to this, which is you can either continue to boot, which will lead you to a violation screen, or you can enroll a key or a hash. In the case of Ventoy, it's got a key. If you have installed it with EFI, with GPT, and the EFI boot for secure boot. That's all part of the Ventoy installation. And it's a little extra step, but it's in the options in the installer. And then using this option, we will be able to enroll the key. And it will, as soon as you click on the Ventoy EFI, it will offer some options, and it says enroll the key is the third option. You drop down to that and click on it, and it automatically runs this little program. And I think there's an additional confirm you have to do to continue. And you have to hit yes for enroll the key. And once you do that, it'll bounce you back, so you could enroll another key, but you don't need to. And so now you just will continue to boot. And this time, it'll go through a reboot, and there you are at your Ventoy menu. This menu allows you to launch the ISOs which will not cooperate with TPM, and they do not have a problem as long as Ventoy is registered or enrolled. So it's that Ventoy enrollment that is the important thing. And that is how
you run your Linux off of the Ventoy then?
No, that's installers and partitioning utilities, and if necessary, repair utilities for the booting of Linux. Sometimes that needs to be repaired. And you can put a lot of different installers on there. If you get fancy, you can also actually run Linux off of Ventoy. I would not do that because I already have a place where I run Linux, and that's the enclosure. So what Ventoy allows me to do is to do the things I need to do to install Linux and sometimes to fix booting issues. And otherwise, the booting of Linux is not affected by the secure boot environment. In fact, I can switch my BIOS from other OS. I can switch it back to the Windows UEFI. And Mint and Ubuntu do not care. They have Microsoft approved signing keys, which are already in there, already entered into TPM2. So it's not really that scary a matter using USB drives, as long as what's on the drive supplies the security key after the first boot. That's the most important thing. Now, there is, so that's basically, that's the story. And I am going to allow plenty of time for people to ask questions, because I do see that I need to wrap up. So what I'm going to do is stop my share. And does anybody have questions or further discussion you want to engage in? And like I said, we could do the features of Windows 11 some other time.
Oh, is that a new brain, Tim?
No, it's actually an old brain. It's one I picked up years ago. This is an ITX board. It's 17 centimeters square, or about 7 inches square. It's a 9th generation processor. I got an M.2 slot, only one card slot for a graphics card. If I don't put in a graphics card, I have an adapter that I can put in here and put another M.2 on that adapter.
Okay, how does this relate to Bob's
and
thing?
When it comes to the ports, I have here two 3.2 Gen 2s, same on this one over here, but in the middle are 3.1 Gen 1s at 5 gigahertz, like Bob's talking about. So this goes back to 9th gen, and he's on the 12th gen. It seems to be a standard, having both the 5 gigabit per second as well as the 10. And very shortly, we'll have up to 40 gigabits on USB.
Bob, why did you go with a Core i5 versus a Core i7?
Cost and the fact that I don't do the kinds of processor intensive things that would require the power of a Core i7. I don't do video transcoding. I don't do a lot of gaming. In fact, I don't do any gaming. And what other kinds of things really benefit all that much from the extra power? The Core i5, at least in the recent generations, is really not that. It's really not that far below the Core i7 performance for everyday tasks. So, anything else? I also am going to try
I'm
to.
gonna pack it in. I'm thinking I'm gonna pack it in, gentlemen.
Okay, Wayne.
It was very interesting listening to everybody.
We'll,
Thank you much.
Wayne, we'll see you Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday is tips and tricks.
And what
I got to
time?
send out a meeting notice to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Bob?
Bob, I have a
No.
question.
Yeah.
You were talking about using or not using hubs on multiple disks. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, just today, I have a couple of USB 1 drives, and I put them into a single hub that handles 4. And all those disks are not used at the same time. And even 2 of the ports that are into that USB hub are things like a, what would you call it? The machine I never use. It will scan negatives for pictures.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. It's 2 of the ports are used for old disk drives, and even those are only used for backups, and those backups are not at the same time. At one time, though, one of them will be used for backing up pictures, and the other one would be used for data, but not at the same time.
Yeah. If you aren't using the drives at the same time, they should not interfere with each other. But if you're trying to go from one drive to another, you don't want them to be on the same hub.
No, I wouldn't go one drive to the other. I'd go from an internal drive to an external, and the actual port that they're in is a USB 2 port that the USB 1 hub is plugged into.
Yeah. Again, well, if you plug a USB 1 port hub into a USB 2 port, you're going to be slowing the port and
Yes.
the entire bus. So
Yeah.
any other ports that are on that bus will be slowed to USB 1 speeds. For the size transfers I'm doing, that would be utterly unacceptable.
Okay. Well, I can't tell you what's.
But I see what you mean, that as long as you're not doing things at higher speeds and large files at high speeds, you may not notice that there are any problems, and there may not be.
Yeah. There are, on the back of the computer, there are 4 USB 1 hubs, or excuse me, USB 2 hubs. And
Yeah.
I didn't have much room to plug in these USB 1s. And I was thinking, I've not used them all at the same time, and some I don't use at all, but I want to have them ready if I ever wanted to use them for these devices that are off on the sides.
Yeah. I prefer not to keep things plugged in all the time, especially not backup drives. But if you want things plugged in all the time, of course, they are conveniently available. And that might be an advantage.
Well, I understand about not having them plugged in. That's a very good thing not to do for backups. But in this case, the backups are powered on and off. So if they're off, it's like they're not plugged in.
That's not true.
It's not.
A surge could travel all the way through all of that.
Okay.
It's a little risky. That's all I'm saying. It's not very risky, but it's a little risky.
Then I'll alter it. I'll alter it.
Physically unplugging is the safest, but again, it's not very convenient. So it's your choice.
Well, I do have the USB 1 plugs that they could go into the front of the machine, but that's just hanging out across the front of the machine. So I figured, well, leave them in back and just turn the thing off. But if a surge could get through that, then I'll put them in front.
Potentially it could travel through a hub, I would think.
Yeah, well, yeah, through all of that. But if the surge could get to them, if they're plugged in, then I'll just put them in front and unplug them.
Put them on a surge suppressor.
Yeah.
Or put the whole system on a battery backup.
Yeah.
And that has built-in surge suppression, and your problem is solved.
Well, the whole system is on a surge suppressor, but
preferably, like I said, a UPS is actually safer than a surge suppressor. But I need to wrap this up because we're running long tonight.
Yeah.
Any other last questions for Bob? Yes, but Bill.
Not a question for Bob, but if you look at the chat, you people in Illinois, I put up there a link where you can get $300 back from your real estate taxes if you're not aware of it.
That's for those of us in Illinois. And that's if you're not, I think, what is it? If you didn't file your tax returns last year, you need to follow some of those steps. If you filed your state tax returns in the state of Illinois, you will automatically get the $300. If you own real estate and paid property taxes, no.
No, not if you didn't file the real estate taxes on your Illinois form.
Right.
Separate form.
Okay.
I did not. So I had to follow this link.
I did get a postcard in the mail stating that this would be coming to me. So I'm assuming that
we already got our check.
Well, there's a $50 check for income, and then there's a $300 check for real estate taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a heads up.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got any last comments for Bob?
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
And like I say, we can revisit some of this stuff in future meetings.
Yes, we could do this at Tips and Tricks too. Okay. All right. Thank you everybody for attending, and I hope to see everybody at Tuesday's Tips and Tricks. Enjoy the rest of the month. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.